Now we will turn on Serbian migration challenges, and I give the floor to Ivan Brkljač.
That's pretty good pronunciation, actually. So, first of all, thank you for the lovely introduction. Thank you for hosting this event. Thank you for hosting us last night. And I think it's really important that we have these discussions comparing what our nations are doing in our neighbors or somewhere even further away. I think we can all learn from this, and I hope that with some of the things that I'm going to say, of the examples that we're doing in Serbia, that we can advance this and talk this forward. And I have a great pleasure to having my colleague Arno here, who will talk a little bit more about the systemic government's approach. We're like a little startup within the government, and I'll explain how everything functions with what we're doing. And I think it's a relatively innovative approach to dealing with the diaspora. But to talk about how Returning Point, or in Serbian we would say Tačka, Povratka, was set up, I want to talk about the genesis of the whole idea of how to create it. So in 2018, in December, when the holidays are, we celebrate our Christmas on the 7th of January. But normally people come for the Catholic or the Protestant holidays on the 25th, and then that gap between the 25th and the 31st is a great opportunity to meet our diaspora that comes for the holidays back home. So for 4 years running now, we already have this conference called Talent Meetup. This was organized in the initiative of our Prime Minister, Ana Brnabić. Her cabinet organized the first one. The Returning Point now overtook the organization of that conference, but it was a great conference because in the first conference 250 people from all over the world and from Serbia met in one spot. It was a one-day conference, it always is, and it's like the opportunity for great artists, great businessmen, great entrepreneurs to kind of get together and talk about what's happening somewhere in the world and what's happening here. And in that conference, one of the main ideas, one of the main kind of conclusions of the conference was that we need an organization that will have like a startup mindset that will be communicating with our highly educated and highly qualified people from the diaspora. And a year later, I went out on that same exact stage, talking about Returning Point, how we're going to set up a new program. This was 2 years ago. Nadav here was as well on the conference, speaking from the Israeli example. We were just on the beginnings then, but and we had like a great plan, what we will do in the next 6 months and next year, and then Corona comes, yes. But actually, that was the kind of like the christening in fire, because we were engaged with bringing all the people that were stuck. At one point, Serbia closed its borders, like many countries did, and we had to evacuate people inside the country. And that was our first major task. Within 20 days, about 5,230 people contacted our organization. We put them on list, and in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we managed to send out planes to our people that were abroad. So this was kind of like this wasn't planned activity for our organization. We wanted to focus on different things because our organization has 5 main pillars. In our mindset, repatriation is not the only cause. Connection with the country is the things that we were looking for. But out of those 5 pillars, we have actually helping both on the systemic level and on the individual level to our highly qualified, highly educated diaspora. And these 5 pillars are: if you want to come back and work in the country, if you want to come and study, if you want to contribute, whether that is with your time, with your as a philanthropist, whether you want to invest, when you want to retire. And so we are creating programs underneath these 5 pillars to kind of make sure that everybody kind of gets treated. But I'll do a little bit more about the examples, because I think these are very concrete, and some of the results in these 2 years. So in 2 years, we had contact with more than 8,000 individuals who ask us and use us as our concierge service in a way to find out the most minute things or the most important things. So for example, some people say, oh, I still work for my company in the US, but now I can work remotely because of the pandemic. How am I going to regulate my taxes if I move back to Serbia? It's an important question. How do you get the Social Security sorted out? From something very important to that regard, to questions like, I have a 40-kilo dog, and I don't know how to transfer him back from the US. So how do I do this? And so we are basically like their concierge service, and they are providing us with the ideas of what we can change within our system to make things better. But it's important to say this, because we're talking about the measures that the government can take in order to attract or kind of promote the diaspora relations. So I will in March of 2020, great timing, there was the new law passed where we were subsidizing people who are coming back to the country. Let me how that works. Because what we realized from our research is that we are missing highly qualified people pretty much in all the industries. We're just we have many more jobs that are now available than anyway. That's true in many cases. So what happens now if you're coming back to Serbia, and this doesn't only include Serbians. This is if you're coming after 2 years or more of living abroad, so you're a new resident. And an employer gives you a salary that is 3 times higher than the national average, that employer gets a deductible on the taxes for 70% in the next 5 years, which means that you as a repat or somebody who's coming, a foreigner coming for the first time, you get very, attractive on the job market. This is also true for if you're a student coming back to the country. So if you spend 1 year or more abroad on, let's say, the master's, and an employer gives you 2 times the national average salary, the same rules apply, 70% deductible on taxes. So this is a great incentive for our students and for people who are now reconsidering coming back. And all of us are here in this field, that Serbia has for the last 30 years issues with immigration, and even more, like our historic immigration starts in the Yugoslav times, and then obviously the wars made things much worse for us. But even in the 2000s, it wasn't as good. But things are now starting to turn around. And I'll tell you, the Vienna Institute for Economic Research actually did a whole study on the Western Balkan region, and they actually calculated that about 8,000 people leave Serbia per year net, and they go to the European Union. We know that 80% of our immigration goes to the EU. The rest goes around the world. So that comes up to a number of about 10,000. That's from the 2010 to 2019, which in Serbian media that we follow, we hear this like astronomical numbers of 50,000 people, a village the size of an ex-city exodus the country, which is, when you look at the data, not true. But now from October, actually, we use this because it's very hard to follow migrations in Serbia because people do not renounce their residency. They leave from Serbia, they go and let's say they live in Vienna. They're always registered in their address. So 99% of people do not say, oh, we have left. So it's very hard to follow the migrations. So what we have done with United Nations Development Program, we have actually measured it using new ways, and I recommend you to check this out. It's called UNDP Depopulation Challenge. Check that online, and you will see the methodology of how it was conducted. So basically, we use Facebook advertising algorithm to follow the migrations. You can see what the domiciled nation, where it was, how it moved out, how many Serbians, how many people who declared themselves Serbians on Facebook live outside of the country, and then you ponder that with the number of people that actually, use Facebook. So because 43% of the Serbian population uses Facebook, so that's a pretty good, how do you say, uzork? Sample. There's a pretty good sample. So, and then when you ponder with the amount of people who have closed their Facebook accounts, we can actually see that from October 2020 to October 2021, we had 92,300 people come back to the country. Which, if you look at those numbers that, about 10,000 people leave the country, this kind of covers up ground for the last 10 years lost. Now, this is most likely a temporary thing, these numbers. Because actually at one point we even had a higher rate of people coming back. These are probably temporary, but some of the people who came back are going to stay. And I think this is a great thing to follow. And I recommend to all of you who have problem following migrations, this is a great methodology. But as I said, we're in constant contact with our diaspora, and people are telling us the weirdest kind of problems that they have. But out of many of their ideas, the ideas for us to present to the government come, and I'll give you just a few. So, for example, if you're a Serbian living abroad and you want to raise a mortgage to buy an apartment in Belgrade or Novi Sad or any other city, you can't really do that because there is a legal way, but like the banks don't want to do it. And having your own, let's say you left 5 years ago to Germany, you have a great salary, maybe you saved some money, you're considering coming back. But you have enough money for a down payment, and you can definitely pay the mortgage rate, but you don't have enough money to pay everything in cash because that's how it was done. So now we've just are waiting for the final touches with one of the Serbian banks, which is going to issue the first diaspora loans, mortgage loans. The rates are going to be the same as in Serbia, just that the down payment is going to be a little bit higher. The industry standard is about 20% in Serbia. This is going to be 30%, but it's going to give them a foothold or a place to come back to Serbia. Another example is something that we actually based off of our Polish colleagues. It's Karta Polaka. We have now copy-pasted and amended your idea, and now we call it Karta Serbica. Not very original, but I hope effective. So Karta Serbica is a little bit different than what you guys are doing, but it will kind of do the same thing. So it's providing a fast track for temporary residency for everybody who is now, and we've changed the law actually to include the fourth generation, and it doesn't have to be from Serbian territory, but it can be both from Serbian territory or of Serbian descent. If, let's say, you can have a grandfather that has, something like got married in a church, that can be used as an example, and you get a fast track to temporary residency. This is currently in our in the Ministry of Internal Affairs in final review, and by their account, it should be done in the next 2 weeks and accepted in our government. So this is kind of using your model where you started with the post-Soviet attraction of people who were in the post-Soviet country, then later expanded into the whole world. One of the things that we realized, so for example, we get an email one day and saying, okay, I moved to Qatar 5 years ago and I bought this great BMW, I don't know, X something, whatever, and I can't import it back to Serbia. I was like, why can't you import it? It turns out that car didn't have heating because it was for Qatar, so why would you have heating, yeah? So it doesn't have a straight pathway of how that person, that repat, can register his car. So we now started an initiative with our agency for traffic safety to find out the methodology, because we've realized that we cannot import cars from the US, from Canada, actually all the cars that are not made for the European economic area. If they're not made for that market, you can't import it because there's no clear procedure and pathway how you can actually register that car. And Croatia has it solved by having if you're a repat, you get it. Yeah, you get it like a one-time thing. I think Serbia is actually one of the few countries that do not have this solved, but we are currently working on it. Also, one thing that we changed in the last 2 years, and we didn't realize this was a problem. You had import tax when you're coming back to Serbia as a repat. So everything north of 5,000 euros, you have to pay taxes on it. And we just realized, okay, that's kind of, we're inviting people to come back, but then we're taxing them on their imports. So we've changed that. We changed it in the last 2 years. So before it was 5,000 euros, now if you are coming back to Serbia and you've been abroad from 2 to 10 years, that limit is lifted to 20,000 euros. And if you've been more than 10 years abroad, it doesn't exist. You can bring in as much stuff. The only thing that doesn't apply is on cars, because that falls under the different law. But these are the concrete, exact examples that we were listening from our diaspora. What do you need? What do you need solved? And this is how we kind of operate. It makes it easier for us because they're the ones providing the ideas. But I call this little speech and talk changing the face of the nation, because this also has to do with personal examples, and I'll give you two, maybe two for start, two, and I think I'll finish up with that because it's very important that we can then later in a Q&A session talk about what are the other concrete measures that we have been doing. We wanted to change this narrative, really. I was abroad for 10 years, I came back, and one question that everybody always asks me is, Ivan, why did you come back? Plus, I also have a Slovenian passport because my father is Slovenian, and thus I could live in the EU. I finished a good university. He's like, why are you crazy? Why are you coming back? And then my answer was always the same, because I like being a part of my cultural context. I love being close to my friends, my family, the way that my nation and my people operate. This is why I came back. But it's taxing when you get this question all the time. And it's taxing for many people. So because we are the ones who are promoting circular migration. We are not saying come back to Serbia and stay here forever, or don't leave Serbia. No, just if you want to go, go. If you want to come back, come back. It is okay. As long as you kind of keep connected, and it's going to be, find your own tribe, find your own community. And I think that will be better if we looked at it like that as a whole nation, both living inside a country and outside a country. It would be better for all of us. And these two examples that I wanted to mention are some of the people that we managed to help in this process. And we managed to, in the first year, we managed to organize 200 job interviews and about 60 conversions on those 200 job interviews. Now, in institutions, in private sector, we bundle up CVs and send them to like different organizations, and many of the people that we pick out get hired. But this was this one example. So actually, just about the time when you were in Belgrade, there was this guy who had a problem of registering his diploma. He's a PhD holder in archaeology, and he couldn't get his because it's anthropological archaeology, and it's a little bit confusing for our agency of qualifications to register. And we managed to help him out get his diploma. But then we sent his CV to one of the I would say the most important archaeological sites in Serbia, which is Vinča, and the site is called Belo Brdo, White Hill, and it's about the Vinčanska cultura. It's like a prominent Balkan culture. It's been here, it's been in Croatia, it's been in Bosnia, like it's present everywhere. But what this guy did, only 6 months after, he got hired. He turned out to be a great success. He applied for American Ambassador Fund, and he managed to supply basically one of only 5 locations on the world to get this credit, this loan, or this aid, basically. $500,000 to basically get this, how do you say, the mudslide, when something that was threatening the, you know what I mean, like when there's like a landslide threatening the site, and they managed to sort it out with that grant. And that grant, it's something that wouldn't have come out of probably other countries' pocket because it's such a particular thing. And this shows you exactly how if you repatriate people well, if you include them in the community, if you give them a chance, there will be a great return on investment on fewfold. And also like to share because this one last, let's say we're talking about Ukraine, and we had a situation. We had a professor call us from Sumy during the middle of the encirclement, I would say, and he was stuck on the 5th floor of his colleague's apartment, and they're running out of water and running out of everything. And we had time slots in which we communicated because he lost at one point contact with the embassy, but we connected him back to the deputy of the minister. And the deputy of the minister and I were in constant contact whenever we could have provided some small information. He managed to come out at one point. Some of the information was crucial, something wasn't, but he called us, both me and the deputy of Minister Vera, and in tears when he landed from Krakow. He evacuated. It took him 2 weeks to evacuate to Krakow, and then he flew back to Belgrade, and he called us in tears. And this is sometimes that you have to understand, both in these situations of crisis and in regular situations, what we are doing as Returning Point and as and somebody who's dealing with migrations and who's dealing with people, we're changing people's lives. And that often gets, omitted from daily, backlog of emails and doing some procedures. But every time, I struggle to find meaning in yet another email, I remember these situations where you manage to positively influence someone in coming home safe or finding a meaning in their own country. So with that, I would like to end it up. And I hope we all keep changing the faces of our nation one person at a time. And for any questions, I'll be here available. So let's open up a discussion. Thank you so much, guys.